So I guess it was 1987 and Joe Satriani's Surfing with the Alien came out. What an album, and that kind of turned the whole guitar community on its head at the time. What did it end up being? Probably one of the most successful instrumental guitar records of all time. I don't know what the sales were on that. I should look into that. But anyways, that album was such a huge influence on me and my playing. I don't know how many times I ended up spinning that record or whatever I had it on at the time. I guess it would have been a cassette at the time maybe, or I don't know if I had the vinyl. But anyways, it's really kind of surprising me. I don't know why it hasn't dawned on me before now to do a dialing in video. So welcome to this next installment of Dialing In for our Line 6 Helix, where I'm going to take a look at one of Joe Satriani's classic tones from his classic record, Surfing with the Alien. And I'm going to do the title track, the actual song Surfing with the Alien, as you heard me kind of just butchering the rhythm guitar part to that, or messing around with that. So yeah, this was, I really can't believe I haven't thought about actually doing this, and it popped in my head the other day, and I thought, you know what, let's do this. So I do have a performance video up at the same time that this is posting, so please go check it out. I did the whole song. I recreated it pretty accurately. I mean, some of the end solos and some of the solos I might have put my little own flair in it. Joe, you know, it's tough to nail down exactly what Joe plays on a lot of this, is he's such a, you know, impromptu kind of amazing soloist and improviser, right? So anyways, go listen to it. And I thought these tones actually worked really nicely in the mix. What you're going to hear in the mix is this preset. It's a 2-snapshot preset, one with his rhythm tone, one with his lead tone, which are actually surprising when you dive into listening to this closely, quite different from one another, but both really interesting tones, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But all you're hearing in the performance video is this preset completely untouched in the mix, no post-processing done over actually the original backing track from the album I was able to hunt down, but just with no guitars in. So you're only hearing this preset. So let's dive over to HX Edit and take a look at what I did on this with our Helix, okay? So you'll see a patch here with an LA Studio comp at the end, like I normally do, parametric EQ, a little bit of reverb, some delay. What else here? The low and high shelf. So all of the sort of template stuff I normally use, but some really neat other things. I used a dual pitch model to do some interesting kind of detuning effects to almost give it a bit of a chorusy effect, which is what I understand was actually done with an Eventide. I'm not sure, remember which model was said that was used on the original recording. I used the Brick Plexi Bright into a 412 Greenback 25, and for the lead tone I used the Valve Driver, which is supposedly, and again I wasn't there so I don't really know, but from my research, is what Joe used in the studio. It was a Chandler Tube Driver, okay? And I also threw on a throaty wah. I tried a few of the different wahs, and I ended up settling on this with some changes that I tweaked within it. It kind of felt like it got as close as I could get it to sound, all right? So let's take a look at the rhythm tone first. You'll notice the wah is off, the Valve Driver is off, the pitch detune effect is off, the delay is off. So that stuff comes in later when we do our lead sounds, okay? So let's start at the end. I have my normal LA Studio comp on, peak reduction of 5.5, gain of 5, mix of 100%. Again, this is the mastering section where I'm just kind of gluing the whole tone together, right? A little bit of EQ, parametric EQ at the end, not a whole lot going on. Mid-frequency of 600 hertz with a fairly narrow Q of 2.4, but I cut that out about 5 dB. Get rid of some of that muddiness in the low mids. Excuse me, pardon me. Nothing else there other than the low and high cut, and if you notice, the high cut is snapshot enabled, so when we switch over to the lead, that gets turned off, okay? And I also, if you notice on the lead, I get rid of that mid cut that was there. And I don't know why 8 kilohertz got boosted 0.1 dB. That was probably just a mouse click that wasn't supposed to happen. So I'll just put that back. I don't think I actually boosted at 0.1 dB and heard any difference. So that's the changes that happen on the EQ. So I won't go back to that when we talk about the lead. The reverb, I just put a little room effect in there, decay of 5, mix of 30%. Just again, like I always say, you know, dealing with modelers when we're recording direct, you're not getting any room ambience from a microphone sitting in any room. I mean, any space, no matter, you know, how it's treated, has some sort of ambience that ends up coming through on the recording, right? So just to give it a little bit of, I don't think this tone was super reverbed out by any sense on the original recording, but it, you know, just to give it a little bit of life, I always put that. So that's on there. We'll come back to the delay when we talk about the lead tone. The low and high shelf, so I have low frequency of 650 hertz and all the frequencies below that cut by 2 dB. And on the high gain, I have the high frequency set at 2 kilohertz and all the frequencies above that boosted 2 dB for the rhythm, and on the lead boosted 3.5 dB. Okay, so subtle changes on the EQs, like I've just talked about, between the rhythm and the lead, so good enough. And then other than that, we have the amp for the rhythm tone. So I went with a 57 dynamic, so a Shure SM57 model on the 412 Greenback 25. You know, any of my viewers know I'm a big fan of the ribbon mics, but for this particular situation, I didn't feel that that would work as nicely. This tone seems to kind of scream SM57. I don't know if that was what was used on the original recording, but it kind of seems like it's what would work to my ear anyways, and I think in the end it did. So the distance of 1 inch, low and high cut off, because I had already done those here on the parametric EQ. So that's the cab, and then we go over to the Brit Plexi Bright model with a drive of 5, bass set at 3, mid at 3.6, treble at 7.7, presence at 7.5, channel volume at 6, master at 10, and I don't believe I touched any of the deeper functions. You'll notice those are all snapshot enabled with the little white and brackets around them, right? So there was some changes when I went over to the lead on those, and we'll talk about those in a second. But for now, that is what I used for the rhythm part. So let's do this. Let's turn off the EQ, let's turn off the reverb, let's turn off the low and high shelf, and let's even turn off the compressor at the end. And we'll just hear what these settings that we talked about sound like, just straight with the amp model basically on, and that's it. I'm using my Line 6 Variax JTV89F. I'm not using it as Variax though. I am using it simply with the magnetic pickups on the bridge position. I found it worked really nice for this, and it was nice to have the Floyd to do some of the sort of natural harmonic squeals that Joe is known for, you know, those pulling them up and getting those screams. So listen to that, get some of those going in the performance video. So here's what it sounds like with just the amp. All right, let's turn the compressor on at the end. A little bit of glue, right? A little bit of squish, volume comes up a bit. Let's go to that EQ where we put the high and low cuts in, and also that sort of low-mid scoop, okay? That turns it into this. The verb on, it'll be very subtle. All right, now let's go to the low and high shelf where I put, you know, a little bit of cut on the low, mids, and lows, and a little bit of a higher shelf up above all the frequencies above 2 kilohertz, and that sounds like this. All right, and that's basically the zone. That's the rhythm tone that I came up with, okay? So you can really hear that low and high shelf really kind of polishes the sound up and gets it closer to where I want it to be. With it off, just gets rid of some of the mud, gives a little more cut and brightness in the mix that sat really nicely. So that was the rhythm tone. All right. So that was it, and that worked really nicely in the mix. And again, go take a listen to the performance video where you can get to hear how this all came together. Now, what happens when we switch over to our lead snapshot? Well, you'll notice the wah pedal gets engaged instantly. The valve driver gets engaged, and also the pitch detune and the delay, okay? All the other settings we talked about on the EQ, the high cut gets turned off, that low mid scoop goes away, and we do a little bit more on the high shelf, boosting it up to 3.5 dB. Now, the amp settings go as follows. Nothing happens on the cabinet. We still stay with the 57 dynamic of inch back. The drive goes up to 6, bass goes up to 7, mid goes to 10, treble 9, presence 8.7, and everything else stays the same. A little more cut, a little more brightness. Now, the pitch detune is kind of interesting. So what I did is I took the intervals and I kept them at 0. I'm not using it as a harmonizer. But what I did is I raised one of the pitch effects up by 5 cents. Okay, so just a subtle raise and making it go a little bit sharper than the normal pitch. And I put a slight delay of 7 milliseconds on that, just so it doesn't sound like it's being played at the exact same time. It gives it just the effect that I was looking for. And I put that volume level for that pitch detune at 5.5. The second interval, I brought it down by 5 cents, delayed it by 13 milliseconds. So again, it was offset timing-wise. And then that level at 5.5 as well, and the mix of the whole thing at 50%. Okay, and I'll demonstrate what that sounds like in a second. The delay, I put on, set it at about 175 beats per minute, which was around the tempo of the song. I believe I just tapped that in with the backing track. Note sync of a quarter note, feedback of 20%, mix of 25%, spread of 2.9. It just worked to my ear. It's not super in-your-face delay, but it just helped it to sit in the mix. And I did hear it on Joe's original track, okay? The valve driver, gain set to 6, bass at 10, treble at 8, and that seemed to give me what I wanted. Really nice overdrive model, that valve driver is. The wah pedal's interesting, because I really played around with this, okay? I really played around with the low and high frequency sort of ceiling and floor type of thing, right? I didn't want this wah, when going, you know, to the full toe position, to be too bright and to really be piercing. So what I did is I brought that back to 900 hertz. I can't remember what the default setting on it was. I believe it was somewhere around 1.5K, maybe a little bit higher. Go check it out on your Helix. I can't remember. It's not important anyways. But I did bring it down to 900, and I brought the low floor kind of up to 350 to give it a more narrow sweep, frequency sweep range, and this seemed to work. And again, you'll hear that in a moment's time. So that's it. So let's do this again. So if I turn the wah off, and I turn the valve driver off, and I turn the pitch detune off, I'll leave the delay on. This is the tone we get with just those new amp settings, right? Hear the subtle delay, right? Nice tone, kind of brittle and bright, but Joe's tone does have that, right? Let's hear what happens when we put the valve driver on then. Get a little more gain, a little more sustain, which we need for this. All right, a little noisy too, but not really an issue in the mix, right? If need be and you do find it noisy, you can always go over to your noise gate, slap that on, change those settings up, and have that work for you as well. Okay, so then what happens when we put the pitch detune on? So here it is before that effect. Here it is with the pitch detune. You hear it without and with. right. So that gave me just that little bit of almost chorusy effect, but in a slightly different way. And then let's bring the wah pedal back in on this and listen to what happens as we sweep through that. So here it is with the wah. Where's that thing that Joe likes to put in there, right? So if you notice, because I brought sort of that high frequency ceiling down, right? Even when I go extreme to the toe position on the wah, that's as extreme as it gets right there. There's your heel position, toe. So it's funny, you know, that's not a tone I would have dialed in outside of the mix. I really wouldn't have, because it's very bright, but that's how Joe kind of, you know, his tone always has been. So I found that those wah settings work really nice, but this really worked in the mix. And I think you would find that even playing this live or in the studio, that you'd have a similar revelation about it, let's call it, that it would work really nice in the mix with the rhythm guitars and whatnot. So that's the preset. That's going to be up on CustomTone as you are viewing this. Please feel free to go grab it, try it out on your system. You know, there's tweaks that can be made. Maybe you want that high frequency ceiling on the wah to go higher. You know, you can change that, right? Maybe you want no reverb. Maybe you want more delay. Maybe you want, you know, something slightly different to tweak it to yours. Maybe you want more of that pitch effect or none at all. You can turn all of that on and off. That's the beauty of this, right? I love taking through step by step so you can kind of hear how it is with each particular parameter on and off, so you can decide whether it's something you like or not. And again, you know, as my standard disclaimer is, I'm not saying I recreated Joe's tone here. My goal with these is to always kind of get something that's, you know, enough in the ballpark that it's going to be quite usable, or even better than quite usable if I get lucky, right? But there's so many variables involved, right? My hands, my guitar, my room, my monitoring system. You know, your fingers are different than mine. Your guitar is different. Your pickups are different. Your room is different. Your ideals and what you want to hear is different too. So it's a very difficult thing to, you know, sort of make everybody happy with these. But I try my best, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But you can make your tweaks to it so it suits your ideals and what you're doing. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really do. I hope you enjoy the presets, and please share the video if you don't mind, if you know of anybody who'd like to see it. And please also take the time to go check out the performance video where I do the whole Surfing with the Alien track, which is just lovely. I love that song. Spent lots of time listening to it. So yeah, and share the video, like it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have a lot more coming, hopefully interesting content that you guys will enjoy. Thank you for your time. Thanks for tuning in, and ciao for now.